Well, hello and welcome along to Carrington for Manchester United's final training session on English soil before they head out to Spain to face Tottenham Hotspur in the Europa League final. Alongside me this morning, Charlotte Dunker from The Times and forward Manchester United forward Danny Webber. Guys, how are we doing? Very exciting day tomorrow, exciting for everyone. Charlotte, what are your initial thoughts ahead of the final?
Yeah, I was doing fine until I just got drenched by the sprinkler, hence the half wet, half dry look I'm going for today. Yeah, we've been talking off air, haven't we, about what we expect, what we think might happen, and it's one of those where it's so hard to predict because both of these teams have been so bad in the league, occupying 16th and 17th in the league at the minute. But in Europe, they've both been so much better. But because, obviously, this is Europa League, but this is Premier League opposition. So I'm going to be really intrigued to see how both managers set up, how it goes, really, basically. Because Tottenham especially have been playing a very different style of football in the Europa League in the last few rounds to what we see them play in the Premier League. But they are coming up against Manchester United, Premier League opposition. So, yeah, I feel like it's going to be a really close one, and it's too close to call, really, right now.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It's actually the sixth major Europa final that involves two English teams. Is that going to make it even more interesting for Manchester United tomorrow that they've produced some really good performances on their road to the final? But does it swing back to that English opposition and being similar to how we've played them 3 times already this season within the league?
Well, I think obviously that plays a part. But it depends how you view it. You've been beaten 3 times by them, knocked out of a cup. That's enough motivation to make sure it doesn't happen again. And I feel that, we can look at it and say they've had the edge on us, but the tide does turn and can turn. And the games, it's not like in all of those games there's been much in it. I think I know our league form's been bad, but our Europa League form, we've been unbeaten in the competition, and we'd want to maintain that. And it's a shootout. It's a one game. It's 90 minutes. All being well, we get it done in that time. But it's 90 minutes of make sure you focus, make sure you get the details right, and make sure you win.
And in terms of the players we're hoping to see out on the pitch here today, we've been aware that Leny Yoro and Diogo Dalot could be out training, which means they could also be available for the final tomorrow. Charlotte, we were told that earlier, and we were quite happy with that news. Do you think, if they are fit enough, they will be in that starting 11?
I think Yoro is the most interesting one. Obviously, Amorim was really concerned when he went off with that injury. I think because he was worried, because he broke his metatarsal earlier in the season, he was concerned about the long-term impact of that injury rather than just rushing him back for the final. But he's been a regular, hasn't he, in that back three. But I think Dalot is the second most used player this season for Manchester United. So he's been really important for them. He's been out the longest out of the 3 that are injured, Yoro, De Ligt and Dalot, obviously. He's the one that's been out the longest. So I think he's had that time to recover, and they've hopefully not been risking him. So he could be key for Manchester United in the final. So, yeah, like you said, we expect them to train today, and it'd be interesting to see him slotting straight back into the starting 11 you would expect.
Yeah, Danny, how do you feel about, is it risking the injuries? It's going to be an intense game of football, whether it's 90 or 120 minutes, especially with Leny when he's still so young. Do you kind of look at that situation a little bit differently?
No, I think you play who's in form. The one bonus I will say is that with having Leny having been out, it's given the likes of Luke Shaw minutes. So then if Lenny's not quite right, Luke's ready. Or if at any point in the game he's not right, then Luke's ready, and De Ligt and so on. So the fact that we've got all of our players available, bar 1 or 2, is huge for us. And I think, but Lenny's given something this season. He's really given a freedom to the way he's played. You look at the Mason Mount goal where he's gone forward, and he's done it with a freedom. And I feel that if he's fit, it'd be good to see him start.
Yeah, he's been a real positive from what we have seen. I guess he's shown us why Manchester United brought him into the club at the beginning of the year. But going back to Dalot, who has popped up with quite a few goals in the Europa League this season, I think there's a fair few defenders in that team who've provided a lot of the goals for Manchester United. But Dalot seems to have grown in and is enjoying the different style of football that comes with the Europa League.
Yeah, I think as well we've seen him adapt to the system that obviously Amorim's been trying to drill into this team since the beginning. I think obviously there was plenty of teething problems right at the start, but he seems one of those that seems to be able to fit that, and there's a reason why he's selected so often under Amorim, and obviously he was selected well under Ten Hag as well. So both of them are there now. They've just come out, so looks like positive news for Amorim to take to Bilbao as well.
I think a positive you can see there as well is Xerxes. Josh Xerxes out training with the boys. I mean, I don't know where he's at in terms of his rehab, whether that's a team bonding thing or whether he's actually ready to train. We'll see shortly, but that's a real positive. And who's running the gauntlet?
How do you approach these kind of training sessions the day before a big final? Are you going in with the full intensity? Are you training as you would usually train? Like, how does the manager want to see things happen? Or is there a slight eye on tomorrow's game and hoping, do you know what, maybe I don't want to risk this injury, maybe I don't want to go in too hard when you are so close?
No, you have to play like like you are playing in a game tomorrow, and that means keep your intensity short and sharp. You're not going to do this for like 2 hours, but the sharpness has to be there, and it has to be fun. But the focus is the main thing. You focus, your jobs. You're all sort of talking between each other, making sure that everybody's on point. Are you okay? But the main thing is that your fitness is good, and your preparation, your focus for tomorrow is on point, and you're all comfortable with that, the information that's been given from the managers and the coaches, etc.
I think the interesting thing on Friday was obviously both Tottenham and Manchester United played in the Premier League, and Postecoglou and Amorim had two very different ideas to how to set up. In terms of Amorim's team, you wouldn't be surprised if the starting level in the final is pretty similar to what he started at Stamford Bridge, whereas Postecoglou, you wouldn't be surprised if he makes 11 changes to that team. And I think Amorim said it's because he wanted to get them in that competitive mindset, and there's enough time for them to recover because the game is 5 days away. They could have 2 days recovery, 2 days really hard training, and still be ready for that game. So it worked for him in terms of luckily he didn't pick up any injuries in that, but it was interesting to see two totally different ways of approaching how they prepare for this massive game tomorrow night.
And from Ruben's perspective, do you think he learnt a lot from that game against Chelsea in terms of who he might choose for this final? And has he seen different signs of what he wants from his players as we head into it?
Well, I think, first and foremost, I didn't think he was going to go as strong as he did against Chelsea. Prior to the game, I thought he'd have played some of the young players at, not trying to risk injury. But it was interesting, his mentality around it is that, listen, you can't switch it on and off, basically. So I want to put in a good performance, and I felt that the Chelsea performance, minus those not scoring the goals, was a good performance in general for the majority of the players. So you do get into a rhythm, and I think that will help. In terms of the team, I feel like the core of what played, I agree with Charlotte, the core of what played will start. But there may be one or two tweaks, and obviously injuries and people coming back have played a part in that. So that's also good from the perspective that you keep the opposition guessing a little bit.
I don't know whether maybe he learned after that West Ham defeat, because he made so many changes to that team. And I've covered a lot of his press conferences and never seen him so angry as he was after that game. He was absolutely furious. And if they'd gone and replicated that performance on Friday night as preparation for a major final, to have your manager that angry at your performance and to not be impressed with the levels that were displayed, the energy he just thought they were so passive, to then go full strength, basically full strength the opposite way. Maybe he was hoping it has the opposite effect, because going into a final off the back of that performance that they did against West Ham, I just don't think that would have helped them. Whereas, like you said, yes, they lost at Stamford Bridge, but it wasn't a disgraceful performance in the way that they'd played at Old Trafford the week before. So maybe he learnt from that, and that's why he decided to go the way he did on Friday night.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a really good point. I've got to mention that it is very bright out here this morning, but I think the brightest thing is coming from Alejandro Garnacho's new haircut. He seems to have gone very blonde ahead of the final. Are you expecting a big performance from him tomorrow night? Is he going to look at this game in particular and think this could be my moment to really shine ahead of next season and put a stamp on this season?
Well, I think at this moment in time, he probably doesn't know if he's starting. The emergence of Mason, into that position, and the goals that he's scored and the performance he's put in of late will cast a bit of doubt on who's starting in those positions. Obviously, if we start with Casemiro and Agate, then Bruno takes one of those positions, and Ahmad's back in contention now as well. So there's so many factors, but all that matters at this moment in time is not next season. It's about preparing for this game. If you're named on the bench or if you're named in the starting 11, then you make sure you're ready, because we've seen in previous finals, go back to 99, you know, two of the substitutes made all the difference. So you can't be sulking, you can be disappointed, of course, if you're not starting, but you're ready. That's the key point.
When will these players find out if they are starting? I'm sure it's different and under any manager, and they've all got different ways of telling and announcing it, but from your perspective, when would you know if you were in that team or not?
Well, again, you've said it there, each manager has a different approach, but I think for a game of this magnitude, I don't think you would know necessarily today, but it might be, when I say today, before you get on the plane. But I think tonight, when you get to the hotel and maybe you walk around the stadium, they'll say, right, OK, get a feel of it. This is the starting 11. Everybody else, I'm going to need you. And I think that's really important from the managerial and the coach's perspective, to get around the players that aren't. And say, listen, you're so important. I am going to need you at some point. If you be ready. And I can't stress how important substitutes are in big games like this when it's a...
Well, look at the last European game at Old Trafford. It was the subs that came off the bench that totally changed the game for them, doesn't it? So Amorim only needs to use that as an example to prove the importance of every single member of this group, because if he starts all his attacking talent at once and they don't manage to score, what's he got to bring off the bench? But if Garnacho, for example, starts on the bench, he's got the chance to make his name in the European final and come on and make the difference and change things. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see who he decides to go with.
It's interesting because it goes back to the question I asked you earlier about the intensity of this training session. How are you going to take it? But realistically, if you look for some of the younger players in the side, they might be looking to work as hard as they can today, prove themselves to the manager to get a spot on that bench, and hopefully be in the headlines if they can go on and win it.
Yeah, well, you're seeing all the micro battles that you're having. You know, for some of the young lads, you've Tyler Fredericks, things, etc. Just to be on the bench is huge. They're not expecting to start, so that's not in their mindset. They're thinking, if I make the bench and I get the chance to come on, or I win a medal, and then you have to sort of pull yourself back a bit and go, okay, just be ready for today. It's like really, so everybody's got their own individual battles there, and it's not to say that the manager's 100% on the team, 100% set on the team just yet. There might be one or two where he's thinking, let me see how they train today. He's been really good all week. Maybe he's not been great all week, or so all those little factors that the manager and the coaching staff will have conversations about today, and then there'll be the point where he has to name the team, which you hope you're in.
Yeah, it's very true. Charlotte, we spoke about Ahmad briefly, about his return, about how big of a player he is in this team. Would you like to see him starting tomorrow?
Yeah, and I think he would as well. This will be his third Europa League final. He was in Solskjaer's squad for the Villarreal penalty defeat, and when he was on loan at Rangers as well, they made it to the Europa League final, and again he was an unused substitute. So he's hoping that it's third time lucky. He has been. If we look about, obviously the injury was unfortunate and it was a shame for him, because arguably I think Bruno Fernandes probably going to get named Manchester United's player of the season again, and deservedly so. But he has been that bright spark in attack, and he's the one that makes things. He's the one that does exciting things, gets people off their seats. He's come back and he's looked fresh and he's looked good. So I would expect that we would see him start in one of those two number 10s behind Rasmus Højlund. So as Danny was saying before, it depends whether Bruno Fernandes, who has played deeper at Chelsea, whether he plays alongside Casemiro further back, or whether he plays alongside Ahmad. Or then you've got Mason Mount, who's come back and looked really great, having recovered from injury as well. So I think it's a positive for Amorim that he's actually got these attacking dilemmas where he's got decisions to make, because if we go back earlier in the season, he was just having to field whoever was fit, and the injury list was mounting. So the fact that he goes into this, which is obviously the biggest game of the season, and he's got plenty of options to choose for, should be a pleasant headache for him to have.
Actually, it's quite interesting that usually as you come towards the end of the season, people can pick up injuries as they head into the summertime. It's sort of been the opposite way around, where we suffered during the busy period of the season with a lot of players missing, as you mentioned, Ahmad and Mount being two of the big ones in that. But to have them back for the final is massive. And you mentioned Bruno Fernandes. They actually won Fans Player and Player of the Season. And I'm fair to say, Danny, that he's very much deserved in that, because he's been quite the cornerstone for Manchester United, really leading from the front as captain throughout the season.
Yeah, and when you think that he's played in multiple positions and he takes to it like to a top level, his standards are high, his touch wood, he's ever present. His quality, some of the things he does on a football pitch, I always find can can sometimes go unnoticed because maybe the chance doesn't get finished, but his passing range, the chances he creates, he's always, for the past numerous seasons, he's always been up there in the Premier League in chances created, or, you know, which normally would convert into assists if the chances are being finished. So, yeah, he's top. I think he's great in and around people. He fully understands the club and what the club means, and, you know, hopefully he'll be lifting the trophy tomorrow night.
And he's currently top of the goals and assists in the Europa League. 7 goals, 4 assists. Shows that not only has he been doing it in the Premier League, but he's been doing it in the Europa League. And I think a lot of his goals have been important ones, coming at important times, whether it's to win the game, to get a point, or just to spark that comeback and mount the goals to come, and then it leads to the wins or the draws.
I think he's been massive for Manchester United since he signed, hasn't he? And I think when they've been sometimes lacking something, which has been in a lot of games, especially in the Premier League that we've seen this season, he has been consistently the one that steps up every single time. So you're right, he has shown in the Europa League that he can do that. He does it in the Premier League most weeks as well. He's not going to be one that needs much encouragement to up his game either. He wants to perform on the biggest stage. He said he wants to win more trophies with Manchester United. Tomorrow's a perfect opportunity for him to do that. And as Danny said, wherever it is that he starts, whether he starts further back, whether he's asked to play out wide, whether he's asked to play as one of the 2 number 10s, he just adapts his game and he plays well. But the main thing for him is the work rate, and it's never below 99%. It's always right up there, and I think that is what makes the difference when he performs.
Yeah, I think his experience is going to be key as we head in tomorrow. Another player who carries a lot of experience and will know so much about these big major finals is Casemiro, who in recent weeks and in recent games has really shown his skills and shown his quality.
He really has got a spring back in his step, you know, since Ruben's come in. And he knows he's playing a valuable part in the team. You've seen his levels go back up again. And some of his goal scoring, the way he's been breaking up play. You know, you found that, I think, when he was probably short on confidence a little bit and not sure whether he was going to start under the old manager, I felt that there was times where he'd lunge when he didn't need to, and there was a little bit of desperation in his play, which is normally so composed. And he's gone back to that composure, you know, so sure of himself. And listen, I love watching him play. And that experience, as you say, it is vital. It really is when you're going into a final and you've got such a mix of players. Some have won things, some haven't. Some really young lads that might need a calming element next to them. You know, you only have to take 5 minutes with Casemiro, ask him a few questions to realise the blueprint, and, you know, he's got it.
He's obviously got so much experience, and I think that's evident with the way that he's fought back into the team, because a lot of people were writing him off in January, and it seemed like the writing was on the wall, like he'd go in the summer. Why do Manchester United need him? He couldn't get into the starting 11, and he's been really, really key for them in the last few weeks. Some of his performances have been exceptional, especially in Europe as well. And like you say, that experience is going to be key. Mount's experience could be key as well, because he's obviously got experience of getting to Champions League final with Chelsea. So I think there are these little subplots where Amorim is obviously going to be aware of all of them as well, and it's not just what can they bring on the ball, it's what can they bring, the personality, it's what all the lived experiences that they've got. Because obviously if you look at Manchester United and Tottenham's record in terms of getting to finals in recent years, Manchester United have won this competition in 2017. Obviously they lost it under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in Poland later on, but a lot of these players know what it takes to win as well. Whereas if you look at Tottenham's team, there's not as much of that in their squad either.
I guess this midfield question mark about who's going to play, who's going to be involved. I guess Christian Eriksen's a name you got to throw into that mix as well, because especially at the beginning of this competition, he was popping up with quite a lot of goals in the Europa League and really playing a major part in the run to the final.
I think you're looking at Christian and Cobby. We haven't mentioned, both have got immense quality, and they offer different things and have played their part in the run up to the final. You obviously got Christian, who is of vast experience, international level, and, you know, playing from his Ajax days and Tottenham, Inter Milan, and then coming here, you know, via Brentford. But, you know, you've got Cobby, who's youthful, exuberance, and his goal that he scored against Lyon was unbelievable, and it was such a key moment. And he's scored in FA Cup final, he's scored against Liverpool, so he's not fazed. So, you know, out there, that's, you know, it's a recipe that Ruben's got to put together. But it's actually nice that you've got all these ingredients to put your cake together.
Could you compare it as well to Tottenham as well and the problems? They're missing a lot of their creative midfielders going into this final. James Maddison's out, Kulusevski's out, Bergwall, who's been good for them this season, he's out as well.
Yeah.
So you compare that as well, and that's where Amorim might look at the balance of how he lines his team up and thinks, well, they're the players who've done most damage to United this season. It was James Maddison who scored the winning goal in the 1-0 defeat at Tottenham earlier this year, wasn't it, that one?
Yep.
And so some of their most dangerous players have already been ruled out. So obviously that is an advantage to Manchester United, and that could maybe affect Amorim's decision when he's tinkering with the team and deciding who exactly he goes with from the beginning.
I'm going to put you on the spot now, Charlotte. Would you, in the 2-10 spots behind the striker, whoever the striker could be, are you looking for more of an attacking winger in terms of like an Ahmad or a Garnacho, or are you looking towards a more central figure in terms of a Kobe or a Mason Mount? I guess with it being a final, you don't want to be too exposed or too open. You still want to be attacking. You don't want to be too defensive. Where do you sit with that?
I think the balance in the way that he set up against Chelsea, in terms of if you play Fernandes as one of the further more defensive midfielders, we know what his capabilities are. We know that he's able to get forward, link the attacks and push forward into that 10 if needed to be. And then Mount, I think, is deserving of a starting 11 place due to his performances in recent weeks. But then you need Ahmad in there. You need that flair. You need that pace. You need someone to run in behind. So I think the balance is maybe picking Ahmad and Mount, for example, because it's a balance of the two rather than Ahmad and Garnacho. I think they need to have something on the bench like Garnacho to come on and make an instant impact. But yeah, it's a tough one, and luckily I'm not the one that's picking the team tomorrow.
Yeah, I guess Danny as well, we could sort of see a little bit of tactics going on in terms of if he decided to put Kobe in there as a false 9 and then have Bruno or Ahmad or Garnacho in there to play a little bit wider. Can you see anything like that happening?
I don't think so. I don't think you would play Kobe as a false 9 when you have an out-and-out striker, and then you potentially want that out-and-out striker to come off the bench and be in the right frame of mind. So no, I don't think you need to do that either. I think you've got enough players. You need someone to stretch the play to what you would be saying to Rasmus, or if Josh is starting through the middle, I need you to spin him behind. I need, the ball down the side so that the creative 10s can get in the pockets and then do a lot of damage. And so no, I don't think you would do that. Although if you're Kobe, you're sitting there thinking, well, I want to start this game. As everybody is, and that's the mindset. You've got lots of people out there who are playing at elite level football, and they get there for a reason, because they want to start every game, they want to play, and the competitive nature of people playing at this level means that you will be disappointed if you don't. But listen, it's a great position to be in, and it really is to see everybody out there fit. It's massive.
Rasmus Højlund as well has been in prolific form in this competition. He has 6 goals. It could have been more, especially against Bilbao when he won the penalty, denied from getting a tap in that one. He will be wanting to put himself in that starting 11. He'll also be looking to get some of that form back that potentially has been missing in the Premier League a little bit, and he'll want to end the season on a high, getting a goal in a final and really playing a big part.
Yeah, I'd imagine that Rasmus will start the game, if we're being honest. Obviously, Xerxes just coming back from injury, and Højlund's been the one that's been starting in the league. His league performances recently have been really disappointing, but this system is set up to have a striker, and he is that man. I think Amorim, even after the game against Chelsea, where he was heavily criticised, did come out and defend him. He said he was impressed with the work that he was doing off the ball as well, and his commitment, and he might lose out on duels, but he's impressed with his movement in the box. So I would expect him to start, but like you say, he's got a great record in the Europa League this season. Just might not want to be looking at the Premier League goal scoring charts anytime soon. So I think it would do wonders for his confidence, obviously going into next season, if he can make a big impact in the game tomorrow. But given the options that he's got available to him, and like Danny said, we wouldn't expect them to start a system without a striker, given how bedded he is to his system, which means they have to play with a number 9. We would expect him to start tomorrow.
Well, interestingly, Manchester United have 2 players in that top 10 goal scorers list. Tottenham don't have any. You mentioned midfielders that are out missing for them. I think it's Solanke who's in and around the top sort of 10, top 20 in terms of goals in the competition. But if you can stop Tottenham from scoring, it puts you in a great chance to win the game.
Yeah, of course. But listen, a final, it's unique. You'd almost say form what goes out the window. You know, you look at Ademola Lookman when he scored a hat-trick last year in the final. Nobody saw that coming. So it also gives an opportunity for any player to step up and really enhance the reputation, make the name. But yeah, not leaking goals is really important, and that's where I go back to the focus and the concentration. It's so important that you don't do silly things, you know, in terms of even the goalkeeper. If it's coming to you, sometimes just see it away, put it in behind. There's an element of weighing up the risk really quickly. If you're getting closed down, sometimes see it away and then you regroup. And I actually think Andre's done that really well recently. There was a point in time where he was questioned on just passing it for the sake of passing it, but I've seen him turn it in behind a little bit more often, and it eliminates the anxiety, if you like, of sometimes playing the ball in your own goal in your own area, because you are a split second away from making an error, and if you do make the error, which we've seen, then you're on the back foot and you've caused it yourself, and then you mentally got to get yourself back in the right frame of mind, and you know it's you that's caused it. So yeah, I think it's important that they choose the right things, really, when you're clearing the ball, etc.
Tottenham have shown in the league, though, this season that they are capable of scoring goals, and lots of them. Their biggest problem is they cannot keep teams out. Their defensive record is a disaster. They have got Van der Ven and Romero back, which obviously will be a massive positive for them. But United need to look at the way that they've been scoring the goals, but also goes back to what I was saying before about how Postecoglou is going to set this team up, because obviously we see them play this entertaining, attacking, high-pressing brand of football in the Premier League. In the last few rounds in the Europa League, they've gone really pragmatic. They've sat back, they've not had a lot of the ball, they've been happy with that, which isn't what they do in the Premier League. And they've just gone very direct to Richarlison and Solanke, to sort of bypass the lack of midfield options that they've got, and that's what's got them to this place. So yes, it's the Europa League, but it's Premier League opposition. So is Postecoglou going to stick with what he's seen has got them there in the last few rounds, in this more pragmatic approach, something that, like Amorim, when he first got here, said, I will never veer away from my philosophy? Well, Postecoglou has, just to get them to the final. So it'll be interesting to see if they do that. But I think Tottenham's back line, as we've seen all this season, even with the first choice back four, can be vulnerable, and Manchester United need to find a way to exploit that.
They're both really good points. They're both really interesting points. Have you got to be a little bit pragmatic when you go into a final or any cup game, for any matter, that can be decided after extra time or penalties? So different to the league. I know the league format in the Europa League at the beginning changed things a little bit. But when you go into those knockout stages, do you have to be slightly pragmatic and have a plan B, have a plan C, just in case? I mean, Manchester United have scored 9 goals after the 80th minute, not including extra time, in this competition this year, which, of course, Manchester United known for scoring late on in Fergie time. But that's quite a big step. And is there a game plan in that, or are they just getting lucky?
Well, I think if you look at a lot of those games, we could have seen the games off early on. You know, so they've been in position. Leon for sure, and we did score early on. We conceded. So I think you have to look at the condition of each game, but you don't want to be in a position where you're having to score late on. Yes, if it is a situation where it's very tight and there's not much in it, you're hoping that you've got somebody in the team who can come up with a moment. But in reality, you're relying on people to finish the chances when they come. And as you said there, Tottenham have allowed teams against them to have chances. Some people would say we have at times. So, you know, focus, I keep saying it, the focus, the concentration. Sir Alex used to say it, you know, people would switch off in games. You'd have an hour of focus and then they'd just switch off, and he used to go mad, because that's so important. And you're talking about being punished at this level where you get punished. If you make a little mistake, somebody runs off the back of you, it could be a goal. So the focus, the concentration is something that will win you the game if you do the right things.
If you look at that League Cup defeat as well, that game was absolutely crazy, wasn't it? It was just so chaotic, and I think United need to take that out of their game. They just need to calm it down. They need to they've improved since then, but a lot of that was to do with ridiculous individual errors that you probably would come out and see once or twice a season. They happened all in the same game from both teams, to be fair. So I think they need to take that element of chaos out of the game. They need to try and bring some control to it. And if that means being patient and waiting for a goal, I think there's going out full speed and trying to score within the first 2 minutes and then conceding again 3 minutes later to have a yo-yo game like that, I don't think that's what either manager will want. So I think, yeah, patience is going to be the key, and yeah, certainly less chaos from that League Cup game that we saw at the back end of last year.
I've got a slight feeling it might be quite a chaotic game tomorrow.
I feel it's going to go one way or the other. We're going to see chaos, or it's going to be 0-0 heading into extra time, and everyone's thinking, why on earth has no one scored when both of these teams have been leaking goals all season?
Now, I guess that one of the plans Amarin does have, whether it's plan B, C, D or E, is to put Harry Maguire up front and create something. He's been brilliant for Manchester United throughout the years, popping up with important goals, but probably none other than the ones he scored this season at the times he's done it as well. He's just so dangerous.
I think, yeah, definitely. But I think that is a 80-plus minute desperately needing a win option. I don't think it's starting a European final with Harry Maguire up front is probably the best idea that Manchester United have. That is not to take anything away from him. When he gets in we've seen it, he's been brought off the bench and thrown on up front as a number 9, and it's just that chaos that he brings in the area. And yeah, he was unlucky to have his goal on Friday ruled out as well for offside. So he's definitely an option. I don't think he should ever be considered as Manchester United are in a pickle if he's the option from the start, but he brings something in the area, and that run that he made down the wing to assist, that was in Bilbao last time, wasn't it? Yeah. And he looked like he'd turn into prime Ronaldo, didn't he, that day? So I'm sure Amarin would love if he could bring some of that back tomorrow night. But yeah, I think we wouldn't expect Harry Maguire to start up front, but he's shown that he has got the attributes, the ability, and also the desire. And I think that's the biggest thing. If he's asked to do something, he'll do it. And he's another one who's been maligned a lot at Manchester United. He's fought his way back into the starting 11. He's back being a regular starter, and he's a really important player for them. So he can do a job for them up front if needed. But I think it's going to be a last gasp. Throw everyone in the box and hope for the best scenario to see him up there this time.
You make a good point there about Harry. You know, he's come back from such a dark place, if you like, where everybody was against him, not at the club, but everybody had a lot to say, a lot of negativity. And what I like is, and I've said this before, is how he's dealt with it. He just kept his mouth shut. He kept training, he kept working. People were saying he's leaving the club and all this kind of thing. And he just kept his focus and he said, I'm here at Man United, and that's where I apply my trade, and he's always done well, and I just love the fact that he's come out the other side of it, and now you can see the confidence. He's puffed his chest back out again. He's playing a huge part, and it's actually a big lesson to people that when it's not going your way at times, you sometimes just got to go even harder rather than look for a way out the door. And I just got huge credit for him for that. And I think, you know, we mentioned it with Casemiro before, and he's the same. So you're looking at these older pros who have been through it, who don't talk. They don't go to the media. They just literally get the head down and focus, and then they come out the other side and are better for it.
Yeah, a real role model, especially for the younger players in this team. Going from Harry Maguire to Andre Onana, this is his third major final. He's had experiences in Champions League finals. You spoke earlier about how you don't want a chaotic game. He has produced some big saves throughout the competition. He can have been at fault for a few of the goals as well, but he seems to keep a calm head quite a lot of the time and produce the big saves when you need him to.
Well, you need somebody who can, when they've made a mistake, they can recover and not sit there and fold. And he definitely doesn't do that. There's been times where he's made a mistake, he's come out and faced the media and said, look, yeah, that's me, and you know, I've done it, but I'll do better next game. And there's a level of honesty and humility to that. But what you have seen, and throughout from when Eric was here and also under the new manager, slight adaptations to the way he is with the ball at his feet, and I think that's important. And you can clearly see that, you know, he wants to do well. He really does want to do well. we're just watching him here in the rondos as well, and you can see he's rarely in the middle. Although I've just put the kiss of death on him, and he's gone in the middle now. So, but no, listen, he's a good character, and so hopefully he has a good game tomorrow night as well.
I think it's fair to say the camaraderie is in this team. You can see it, everyone can see it, and I think he's always at the heart of it. He seems to always be involved and seems to be a good person to have around the team.
Yeah, I think if you speak to people around the club, they seem to have struck the right balance at the minute with the squad in terms of the personalities. The group seems to get on quite well. There doesn't seem to be too much massive ego amongst the group. I know if you go back years and you speak to people who were involved in recruitment, there was a big drive to try and sort the balance of the squad out in terms of the personalities and the way they all got on. And like you say now, you can see from these pictures that they all do get on. There's lots of laughing and joking. But if they weren't relaxed and enjoying themselves the day before a European final that they've earned the right to be in, then when would they be? But there's been so much pressure on them this season, and rightly so. Their form in the league has been absolutely diabolical, but they've got a chance to salvage something from what has been one of the worst seasons in recent living memory for Manchester United by going there tomorrow night and winning. And they'll have the confidence that they can go there and do that, especially when they look at Tottenham. Yes, they've lost against them 3 times this season, but they're not an unbeatable team. They've got plenty of flaws in their squad as well, so that they'll know that the atmosphere here seems relaxed. They're jovial, they're laughing, they're enjoying it, the sun's shining. They fly this afternoon out to Spain. Massive, massive game. Lots of pressure on it, but also a chance to turn things around and, salvage something from the season.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very interesting to see how people deal with pressure, whether they think too much into it or whether they stay relaxed. Quite often you see them relaxed. They're so used to it. They're professionals. And I think one in particular, Luke Shaw, we mentioned that he's back from injury. Brilliant to see him back. Mm-hmm. Can you see him in the starting 11 tomorrow on that left-hand side? Does he give that different dynamic, maybe a little bit more of a calmer head if in case things were to go wrong earlier on? Do you want to see him involved?
Well, I think if you saw him on the team sheet, you'd be happy. I think that's the way I'd look at it. Is he going to start? Not sure. Does Yoro start there? Does, who does start? We're not sure. But if you saw Luke Shaw on left-sided centre-half, you'd say, OK, that's fine. You'd be all right with that. And I think one thing I will...
Would you be happier seeing him in that left-sided centre-half position rather than the wing-back?
I think you're most likely to see him there purely because since he's been back in the team, he's not been up and down and bombing up and down.
Him, isn't it, as a left-sided centre-back rather than as a rampaging, attacking full-back. So,
yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I think so. But what I do like is the way Ruben's managed the players coming back. You've seen when you've got a player like him and like Mason who've come in and broken down and straight back out for a number of weeks, stroke months, you need to be slowly brought back into it. And I just like the way that's been done. It's been almost like we're going to manage your minutes. There's plenty of games. We're going to give you half an hour here and we're going to give you another 20 minutes and, however the minutes mounted up. And you can see now, they've both played 90 minutes. They're both in a position where the confidence for them as well in their own bodies is now back.
Yeah, when Yoro got injured in that game, Amorim immediately took Luke Shaw off at exactly the same time, and he said in his press conference after it was an insurance because he's like, I can't lose 2 defenders. And obviously, knowing what Luke Shaw's injury record is, it was sort of to wrap him up in cotton wool, which shows the importance and how he views him within the squad. And for him to be able to come back from a long time out and slot straight back in is testament to the work that he's done as well.
Absolutely. Well, final thoughts ahead of the final. We've just seen the team train. Really enjoyed what we've watched, to be fair, for the last half an hour, 45 minutes. Final thoughts ahead of it. Are you feeling confident?
I've got one word: win. Whatever that looks like, we want to win. And I think that's important. Leave the detail to them, but, we want to see us win and, it's an accelerator for the club going forward.
Similar?
I think it's going to be tight, but they seem relaxed, they seem excited, ready to go. So I'm sure they've got what it takes to do it, but it's going to be a huge night for them tomorrow.
I think if we're only limited to one word, mine's going to be chaotic. Well, thank you very much for joining us. We'll be back tomorrow night, 1 hour before the final for Matchday Live. A big event, everyone's excited, and we'll see you then.